Right, let's get more reaction now to a dramatic British Grand Prix in which the halo prevented 2 major injuries. Carlos Sainz won his first ever F1 race and Lewis Hamilton finished in 3rd. Well, Craig Slater has gone to Oxfordshire to get some more reaction for us. Craig.
Yes, I've come to meet up with a driver who knows what it's like to go at high speed upside down on a racetrack. Anthony Davidson, former F1 driver, and then it was Le Mans, wasn't it? You had that really scary crash in which you were upside down for a fair bit of time. But I mean, it's a good news story today. Let's say that first and foremost. Zhou Guanyu is fine. Roy Nissany is fine after his F2 crash. I just wonder, in terms of the big one in the British Grand Prix, are there other areas that the FIA will look into and just see if they can improve safety further?
Well, I think first and foremost, Craig, I mean, it's great to see him walk away, and Albon as well, for that matter. He had a pretty hefty crash into the concrete wall on the pit side. But the main thing I think the FIA will look into are the scary images I've seen of the car from the aftermath of the crash, where the actual roll hoop seems to be missing, and that really didn't do its job. If you think about that, the roll hoop should be as strong as the halo, stay intact at all times and protect that driver's head from impact, and it didn't do it, so they'll be asking questions with that.
What about, and I've been down to the crash site this morning and just looked at the very narrow gap between the tyre barrier and the catch fence. I mean, you're not expecting a car to get in there, but a car did get in there, and I suppose, does that make it tricky for those looking to retrieve the driver?
Well, I haven't spoken to anybody from the FIA yet, but I will when I get a chance, of course, and ask why that. I guess it's an access path for marshals, but why is it that size? There must be protocols that goes into place for a Grade 1 FIA safety circuit. Why does that exist? Why is it the way it is? I'm sure they have their reasons, but yeah, unfortunate that a car could actually slot into that gap. It certainly looked more scary than it really was. As soon as I saw the car upside down going through the gravel trap and started to barrel roll and over the tyre barrier, I knew he was going to be okay, because I've seen many crashes like that. It looks really scary, it's horrific to watch, but the energy dissipates that way. The more scary crash is when the car just goes straight in and doesn't bounce, it just stops dead, and that's when it really hurts the driver inside. So I know from my own experience, I know from watching other cars that have actually cleared barriers that way completely before. I've seen a really bad one in Paul Ricard, where a sports car went upside down, slid into the tyre barrier and ended up in the airport on the runway, and the driver was still okay. But the real scary ones are the ones where the car just doesn't bounce and the energy just goes straight into the driver's body.
Okay, well listen, it thrilled the fans. Happily nothing terrible happened. The race was absolutely thrilling. Silverstone felt like the cup final of F1. Massive crowd, great world-class event, you have to say. It's brilliantly organised. And it had the extra ingredient of a competitive Lewis Hamilton. I'm going to ask you, how competitive, and when can we next see Lewis be in a position like that in a Grand Prix with a chance to win? Because that's how it felt to me yesterday.
Well, as you know, I do the Mercedes simulator work, and I was in there during the Silverstone weekend and the pre-event work that we did as well. I must say that it's the best that the car's felt in there this year, and the closest that it's felt, more importantly, to last year's car. So I did have a strong feeling the car would be much better than it's been in recent races. I felt it would suit the car, a nice, smooth, fast circuit like Silverstone, and I think the next one coming up will be Paul Ricard. The car's been going well.
2 races time, Frank.
Yeah, in 2 races time, yeah. So the races will come at us thick and fast from now on. Austria, I'm not so sure. They've traditionally suffered there in the past compared to the likes of Red Bull. But I strongly suspect that the next race, in a similar way to Silverstone, will be Paul Ricard, where it's nice, smooth, fast circuit. But they're making inroads to the top teams, and the main thing we have to remember now as well is that from this point onwards, Mercedes will have 10% more wind tunnel time than Red Bull, 5% more than Ferrari, because it's the order of the championship. And that's the complete opposite of how it was up to this point in the season, where Red Bull had 5% more than Mercedes in the wind tunnel, Ferrari had 10% more. And that's why Ferrari started this year so strongly, Now it's going to be very interesting to see from this point in the year all the way up to this point next year. Mercedes will have that 10% advantage over Red Bull in the wind tunnel time. So hopefully we'll continue to see this gap close down between the performances of the cars.
One last one, and I'm going to ask you about Ferrari, and they said that they didn't have enough time to double stack the cars in terms of what they did with Charles Leclerc. They thought better to give Leclerc still track position. Do you buy any of those excuses, or was that just a bad decision yesterday?
Well, I mean, it's always easy to criticise strategy, and you only have to look back at Abu Dhabi last year with Lewis and Max to try to understand, like, why did they leave Lewis out there vulnerable on an older set of harder tyres against a brand new set of soft tyres. It was the same thing going around again, wasn't it, this time? And I think the more that time goes on, the more you realise actually
track position,
especially in this year's car, where you can follow much more closely. As Carlos Sainz summed it up brilliantly in the heat of the moment. He said, no, I'm the one on the attack here. I'm the one on the fresh soft tyres. I'm going to get him. And so will everybody else behind me if I'm trying to give him room, because that's the advantage of the new tyres versus old. And last year was exactly the same for Lewis. You're just a sitting duck there on your old, harder tyres compared to a brand new set of soft tyres. And I think it's almost better to sacrifice track position now to then be the one on the attack. I know it sounds crazy, but that's the way to do it, I reckon.
Great stuff, Anthony. Well, that makes for better racing anyway, so I think we'll have more of that this year if we can. And that's Anthony's tip. 2 races time for Lewis Hamilton to be fighting for victory again in that French Grand Prix.